Oof, what a car crash. Now, Israeli spokespeople have frankly had an easy ride since this horror began 7 months ago. To put it mildly, they've been allowed to frame the terms of coverage. Their endless lies have been repeatedly left unchallenged. They've been treated with deference. While meanwhile, they've not been challenged about multiple grievous atrocities. There's been a failure to pin them down over minor trivialities like the deliberate attempt by Israel to starve the Palestinian people, which they promised they would do over and over again. Look, we could go on. So when an Israeli spokesperson is finally on the ropes, it is like coming up for air. Now, I've had my disagreements with Piers Morgan, to say the least, not least over Gaza, but he gave this Israeli spokesperson, Avi Hyman, both barrels, and it was glorious to watch.
How many civilians do you believe you've killed?
We don't have exact figures, as you know, it's the fog of war.
But you've got exact numbers for Hamas terrorists you've killed. Why wouldn't you know how many civilians you've killed?
Because obviously our focus is to go after the Hamas terrorists. And
hang on, I mean, that does imply that you're putting a bigger premium on killing Hamas terrorists in terms of numbers and accountability than you are on innocent civilians. That can't be right, surely. If you know exactly how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, you must know how many civilians you've killed. Otherwise, you're prioritising the lives of terrorists over innocent people.
Piers, with respect, don't put words into my mouth, please. I didn't say exactly 14,000. I said around 14,000, whereas Hamas will come out with precise numbers that statisticians will look at.
Give me a ballpark number for civilians.
Well, you can use the ballpark as far as the Hamas figures, which I reject as being false.
Well, if they're false, why would you give me those?
I gave you the numbers that I had.
No, you've told me you know how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you don't seem to have any idea how many civilians you've killed. I'm just bemused. Why wouldn't you keep count of both?
I don't have that information to give you, Piers. If I did, I would.
You've literally no idea how many civilians you've been killing.
I can tell you definitively that our aim is to go after Hamas.
No, hang on. I'm sorry to push you on this. That's quite extraordinary. You're an official spokesman for the Israeli government, and you have no idea how many civilians you've killed. I thought you just told me that you were particularly careful about not killing civilians. But if you don't know how many you've killed, how can you say that with any certainty?
Because even if you were to go by a ratio of the Hamas figures, we would still be far ahead of any Western army.
It wasn't my question. You know it wasn't my question.
I don't have the information.
Well, you literally have no idea how many civilians you've killed.
It's not that I don't know. I'm not authorized to give the information. I don't have the information.
That's complete nonsense. Why are you authorized to give me the number of terrorists you've killed, but not the number of civilians? I don't understand. Can you explain?
Piers, we will go after Hamas. We will ensure that we
but you want me to believe you're being incredibly careful about how many civilians you're killing, and you have an amazing exemplary record, but you don't know how many civilians you're killing. So how do I know you've been careful?
Piers, when the dust settles, we will come out with the proper numbers. Hamas runs to the press daily with false...
When the dust settles, a lot of people will have died, and you know how many Hamas you've killed, but you don't know how many civilians you've killed. And I'm just asking you why. Why is it you've kept a record of one, but not the other?
I personally don't have that information to give to you. You can ask me over and over. I'm not going to come up with more information. I don't personally
you don't know?
I don't have that information for you.
Well, you're an official government spokesman for the Israeli government, and you have no idea. Piers,
I came on here to focus on what's going on with the war.
Well, actually, you came on here to answer my questions, I think.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer for you for that.
And I didn't intend to press you on this point because I assumed that you would not respond the way you have. But I've never had an Israeli spokesman who simply said, I have no idea.
Absolutely astonishing stuff there. What was going through Avi Hyman's head when he just froze and stared blankly at the camera? Panic? Desperation? That this is all a bad dream and he'd just wake up and it'd all go away. Get this guy runs a communications firm called Avi Hyman Communications, where he boasts of advising world leaders, CEOs, Fortune 500s, and even rock and roll legends. Well, I'm sure they'll be queuing up for advice after that masterclass in defending Israel's genocidal onslaught. Now, let's just take on this atrocity denial, given the Israeli state and its defenders keep peddling it. Point number one. In previous Gaza conflicts, the official death toll has been validated subsequently by Israel itself, along with, for example, the United Nations. Point number two. Research has actually found that the Gaza Ministry of Health figures previously underestimated the death toll figures in such conflicts by 13%. Point number 3. When Joe Biden questioned, disgracefully, the official death toll back in October, Gaza's health ministry released the names, details, and crucially, Israel-assigned IDs of the dead, because Israel still runs Gaza's civil registry. Point number 4. The United Nations and other agencies have repeatedly described the death toll as credible. Point number 5. Even back in November, a senior US official, Assistant Secretary of State Barbara Leaf, admitted that the official death toll was probably an underestimate. Point number 6. Scientific studies have validated the death toll figures, such as the Lancet Medical Journal, in its study headlined, "No evidence of inflated mortality reporting from the Gaza Ministry of Health." Point number 7. It's been repeatedly leaked that the IDF relies on these official fatality figures. The truth is, these figures are a significant underestimate for a number of reasons. Reason number 1, because they exclude those buried under the rubble and those who are classified as missing, which is many thousands. Reason number 2, because those who are killed, for example, in a group with no one to report their deaths, well, many of those aren't included in the figures. Point number 3, because the reporting system has broken down because the healthcare system has been destroyed. So you need these officials working in hospitals all over Gaza, but those hospitals have been destroyed. So it's actually extremely difficult to report those figures. Reason number 4, because the figures don't include those being killed, for example, by the destruction of the healthcare system, which imposes a death penalty on huge numbers of Palestinians every single day. These aren't people being killed simply by, their homes falling on their heads, being cooked alive by Israeli missiles. Think cancer victims. Think people with heart problems. Think pregnant women. Think newborn babies. We really could go on. Indeed, the death toll is clearly much higher than those official figures would suggest, and will continue to mount, not least, for example, because of mounting famine. And that point about the number of so-called terrorists who've been killed is itself a lie. As the Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported in late March, Israel has created so-called kill zones in Gaza, and anyone who crosses them is shot, and then they are posthumously labelled a terrorist. So you get significant numbers of civilians who are then shot, killed, and then they are simply marked down as more terrorists killed and thrown in Israel's tally. This is, as I will keep saying till the day I die, one of the greatest crimes of our age, and the truth is many tens of thousands have been killed and many tens of thousands more, I'm afraid to say, are going to be killed. All Israeli spokespeople have left is lies, deflection, muddying the waters, or in this case, simply staring, panicked, at the camera. But this atrocity denial must be confronted because it's an attempt to get the Israeli state off the hook for what it has done, and both it and its Western accomplices must never get away with it. Please like and subscribe. Do leave your comments. Do share. Help us take on the pro-war media at patreon.com/OJ84. Listen to the podcast. I'll speak to you soon.